Well, thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Karina. I'm one of the core team for Flotilla4Change, and I'm also representing Livia Campesina. We represent peasant and landless farmers, foresters from all around the world, focusing on food sovereignty and ensuring everybody has a right to healthy, nutritious, beautiful, wonderful food from this amazing earth that we live on. So today you are joining us for a beautiful panel discussion as a bit of a launch for the flotilla. We've been working for months on this behind the scenes, and just really, really grateful that everyone is here to join us. And yeah, we'll see how we get on, what we can uncover, discover, and learn together. So just a little bit about what the theme is and what we're trying to achieve today. We really want to highlight that the conversations being had by the political leaders are not taking into account the voices that matter most. So that's what we're really trying to focus on here. And I just want to allow us to have some grounding to arrive into this space. So I invite you to close your eyes or to lower your gaze. You don't have to, but you're most welcome to. And I just like you to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And we'll do this 2 more times at your own pace. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And one more time through the nose. And out through the mouth. And just noticing your body, noticing where you're at, where you've been today. Maybe feeling the sit bones on the seat or your feet on the floor. Noticing where your hands are, where your head is. And just being really grateful for this moment, for being here. We really appreciate that everyone's taken some time out of their day to be here. And giving thanks to everyone, every being that's allowed us to be in this moment. Thank you so much. So when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes to this moment. So as I say, there's some kind of key elements that we're drawing in today. We really want to highlight the Indigenous communities who are being heavily impacted by climate change and the leaders in climate action and how they're not being part of the conversation. And to represent a little of this, we have Chautaleo who's a Indigenous Mapuche leader and activist, a storyteller, and somebody who speaks from lived experience of the front lines of environmental justice, grounding the discussion in cultural wisdom and resilience. Chautaleo, would you like to introduce yourself, your pronouns as well? My pronouns are Karina, she, her, also they.
Hi, thank you so much for having this opportunity. My pronouns are she, her. I'm not sure if is my Wi-Fi still okay?
It's a little jumpy, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, I keep it short for us to have this conversation, but I'm really happy with the grounding, and I'm also happy that I see so many new faces. That's really what's needed to make a community, to create a movement. We also need to invite new people and to have, the conversation continue, and also making sure that, that Indigenous people, they do have a community around them. So that's really what this is all about. So thank you so much. And let's go to the other, speakers.
Thanks, Chautaleo. Yeah, the other speakers we have, as I say, as part of this story, is we really want to ensure that young people, the ones who are inheriting this earth, this world, this planet, that recognizing they don't have adequate representation in in the political climate currently. And so we have Augustina Trakaya. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I think you go by August. They are a 29-year-old social communicator and climate activist from northern Argentina, from Tucumán. And they're a fellow of Life of Pachamama, one of our partners. And they're a climate leadership training program. That's what they're in, leading up to COP30. And Augustina is engaged in environmental advocacy. She's been doing this for over 7 years and is a member of Sur Ambiental. Maybe you can pronounce this for me correctly. This is SASA. It's a grassroots organization, and she's joined this since 2018 and is currently the president for Sur Ambiental. Her work connects climate crisis with broader social struggles, including feminism, youth participation, and social justice. So thank you so much, August, for being here. You're invited to introduce yourself.
¿Me escuchan ahí?
Yeah.
Bien. Bueno, agradecer obviamente por la invitación, por el espacio, por la traducción. La verdad que estoy muy contenta de formar parte de esto y muy feliz que nada, que cada vez seamos más grupos, digamos, y colectivos que nos reunamos en pos de habilitar a que distintos grupos excluidos y la juventud también pueda tener más espacios y más participación, sobre todo en la lucha contra el cambio climático. Así que muchísimas gracias por la invitación y por este evento.
So August says, thank you so much for the invitation. She's very, very pleased that there's translation for an event like this. It makes an event so much more inclusive. She's very interested in collective initiatives to drive forward the fight for climate justice and sees the absolute importance of foregrounding the voices of the marginalized and particularly of youth in the fight against climate change. So thank you again and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. So another element that we're weaving into this beautiful story is the science side. So the science says that we need to be taking urgent action now. We need to be considering these things, and we need to, understand what we need to do in this moment. So to weave part of this storyline in to the mix, we have Katharina Richer, who is a lecturer in climate change politics from the University of Bristol in the UK. And she helps in understanding the origins and drivers behind the crisis and the solutions that we still have and that we need to pursue. Katharina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Karina, and hi everyone. And it's really nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation, and it's great to share this space with so many of you and making new connections, as Chadwell was saying. I mean, I'll talk very briefly later in the presentation, rather than focusing on the physical science. I will talk about the social and political systems that are driving this crisis or that are underlying this crisis, and how we can circumvent those and how we can challenge those. And I'm also very happy to talk about the physical science later in the panel discussion or the Q&A if you're interested in that. So we can very much go there. But yeah, I look forward to the event. So thanks again for having me.
You are most welcome. Thank you. And the last little thread of this of the flotilla, as we see it currently in this discussion, is that we have so many options for movement and for travel, and the way that we're using our resources to do so. And as such, we have options such as carbon neutral travel, so sailing instead of flying, and that if we had more regular attention, we could make this option more viable to so many other people. So as part of this, we have Penny Engelman to represent from the Fair Winds Collective. And they bring the spirit of sustainable seafaring to life, showing how community-powered, low-impact journeys can connect people and amplify climate justice. Peggy, thanks so much for being here. Would you like to say a little?
Hey, thank you for having us as Fair Winds Collective. I'm an educated sailor by the Nautical College in Enkhuizen in the Netherlands. It's the only one worldwide who educates for traditional tall ships sailing and qualifies professional mariners. And I'm a climate activist, I'm an educator. And we founded Fair Winds Collective to create an understanding of consumption in the way that we are promoting also the way of transport, not only people, also cargo. And this means Flotilla4Change is one of a very important project as we see it. And we see there is a lot of inspiration and hope for a lot of people out there. And that's what we are creating in building up a community as Fair Winds Collective, as the name says. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to hear to all of you and maybe connect in the future.
Thanks, Peggy. So you have a little introduction. You hopefully can see where this discussion is going to go. We're now going to have a little opportunity for each speaker to go into a bit more about what they're doing, what their organization is, who they're representing, and essentially why we need environmental action right now. So they have about 10 minutes each to do this. And I was thinking we could start with Karina, if that's okay with you. Just to get a little overview on the political social system. If you want to mix in some science, I'll leave it to you. I'll give you a little heads up at 9 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good. And I believe Dom's got the slides up. Or he has the slides somewhere. Yes. Do you want to go into presenter mode or show the presenter mode? Because otherwise I think the notes will show up. They might be a bit distracting.
Sorry, one sec. What's showing?
No, that's all right. Don't worry.
There you go. How's that?
There we go. Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Dom. Okay, I'll start my timer as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about climate action as degrowth, economics for people and planet, to again kind of shine the spotlight on some of the economic and social and political systems that are driving this crisis and how they interact with the science. So if you want to go to the next slide, Dom, you'll see that I'll give you a very brief history and kind of critique of economic growth, like why is it important to talk about economic growth when we're talking about climate change. I'll briefly address the question of whether or not we can have green growth, because that comes up all the time when people say, well, oh, we can just, decouple our emissions from our, GDP growth, and we can have, enough revenues to invest in technology that will save us from, the climate crisis. Before coming around to the alternatives and sort of, in the Q&A, we can talk a bit more about how we can make these happen. So if you go on to the next slide, Dom. And again, this is very brief, but I will start this with early capitalism and colonialism, because that's sort of, those are the important starting points for these systems. So capitalism is really driven by perpetual accumulation based on extraction of cheap or even plundered resources and labor. And capitalist production, therefore, isn't really geared to satisfy human needs or, meet welfare or ecological standards, but to create surplus value. So the difference between what it costs to produce a product and how much it's sold for, right? So we need more and more input, and we also need to keep the costs of these inputs low. And then, this process began in Europe with enclosure, and then with colonization and colonialism spread beyond Europe. So where slavery and forced labor and kind of, direct resource extraction were means of taking land, taking labor, taking valuable resources to maximize growth and that surplus value. But that doesn't mean that, you know, GDP, gross domestic product, was always like a standard measure. That really only came around towards the sort of end of the Second World War, is a measure of the monetary value of all goods and services that are produced in a country or in an economy, right? And so the person who developed this, Simon Kuznets, specifically actually warned against using GDP as a measure of welfare or well-being or human progress, and kind of insisted, no, this really only measures economic productivity. But it turns out, you know, it was quite a useful measure. It could be used to compare and rank countries. So, you know, it was incorporated into OECD rankings not too long after. And also in the Cold War became a measure of, you know, a yardstick measure for, you know, East versus West. And, you know, Nikita Khrushchev said that economic growth will be the battering ram with which capitalism will be smashed. So economic growth is not just a problem in capitalism. It is also can be baked into other economic systems. And obviously, it means that what we're measuring here can be good or bad. It can be crime, it can be accidents, but it also can be, you know, the cup of coffee you buy. But it doesn't really tell us anything about how that impacts society. So, you know, I mean, GDP growth could also be weapons manufacturing or advertising or financial speculation. It doesn't tell us anything about resource distribution, so equality or inequality, or place any sort of value on care work. So, you know, what keeps society going and what makes capitalism work, you know, cleaning, cooking, childcare, taking care of the elderly, etc. So there are a few critiques of growth, and Dom, if you wanted to go to the next slide, I'll talk to a few, not all of them, but we can talk more in the Q&A later. So the main point is that GDP growth is associated with greenhouse gas emissions and material and energy use. So most of you will probably be familiar with the Limits to Growth report in 1972. The 30-year update to that found that we're already in overshoot mode. So and the point about this overshoot is that it's vastly unequal. So the EU has about 7% of the world's population, and in 2019 used up about 20% of the Earth's biocapacity, right? So there's a kind of colonial dimension in terms of the inequality in this resource use that's driving this crisis. We've crossed 6 out of the 9 planetary boundaries that are kind of safe operating thresholds for humanity, and that's where, you know, why, you know, scholars are saying that, you know, GDP growth is a problem and it is driving this crisis. Next, if you wanted to go to the next slide, thanks, Dom. If you zoom out a little bit and look at this from a kind of question of international development, you can see there in the graph that, you know, some countries like Norway, the USA, or Germany are achieving high social thresholds, social outcomes like life expectancy, education, health, etc. But they're doing so by crossing many biophysical, you know, planetary boundaries. And then we've got, you know, in the bottom left, countries like Kenya or Nigeria that aren't, you know, using up very many resources at all, but they're also not really meeting their development goals. So over the last 30 years, there in this study is showing that, you know, no country can meet the basic needs of a citizen without kind of over-consuming natural resources. So what that really shows is that we're depleting resources without actually achieving social outcomes. So that, again, is the problem with growth. It doesn't tell us anything about how this is distributed. And then finally, in the next slide, there has been a big critique on the social limits to growth. So the idea that more GDP growth doesn't necessarily deliver subjective well-being or happiness. So we've got, you know, kind of solid empirical evidence base for this now, that past a certain threshold, further income won't actually increase your subjective well-being or your happiness, and that's, you know, due to social comparison and all sorts of other issues. So that, you know, becoming richer is actually not making people happier anymore, right? So yeah, and we can talk about the feminist critique of GDP as well after the presentation. So then very briefly, in the next slide, the big sort of question now, well, can't we have green growth? So to illustrate the between 1990 and 2019, the UK cut its emissions by 44%, while the economy grew by 78%. So, we've got some evidence for decoupling there. So the idea is we can achieve human development by increasing economic growth, and we can decouple this from emissions and material use because of technological innovation. So in the case of the UK, this was because we basically switched from coal to gas plants. So there's a very low-hanging fruit on switching from very dirty energy. But the other issue is that the emissions here that are included in this reduction are only territorial consumption. So they don't include the stuff that's produced elsewhere but consumed in the UK. And it also excludes the UK's share of emissions from international aviation and shipping. So all the stuff that's made in China, laptops, consumer goods, accrues emissions for China, but then we're the ones who actually use it. Okay, so that's what's not captured in these kind of claims around decoupling. So the next slide then shows you the ways in which green growth is built into kind of international and national environmental governance and policy making.
We've got about 2 minutes left, Kat.
Even though we know that we've got some decoupling is happening, but nowhere near fast enough and at the scale that we need to achieve the Paris Agreement commitments. And the other point about green growth is that it doesn't really challenge the sort of underlying growth dynamics, so kind of racialized and gendered divisions of labor, kind of the ideology of productivism and growth, extractivist industries that are kind of creating sacrifice zones across the planet, etc. Okay, so that's kind of that discourse and those power dynamics are left unchallenged. So the next slide, in terms of the alternatives, so degrowth proponents really say that we need to move away from focusing on GDP growth, because again, it is not any qualitative measure of human well-being or ecological sustainability. And instead, we could democratically decide what areas of the economy we want to grow and which ones we don't want to grow. So, SUVs, private jets, advertising, all of that stuff. Maybe we could do away with this, and maybe we could grow those sectors of the economy like education, health, renewable energy, arts and culture that deliver human and ecological well-being. And that could also then work if we reduce these pressures in affluent economies. It kind of goes some way to, not really reduce, but at least sort of try to start chipping away at that ecological debt that, the global north owes the south from this kind of atmospheric and biospheric colonization. And then finally, on the last slide, I've just put some ways in which this can be made to work. And so not necessarily everybody who proposes or suggests or supports these policies is a degrowth person, and not all of them come exclusively from degrowth people, but just to say that many of these are entirely feasible and are being advocated for. So reduced working hours, there was a huge trial in the UK recently that showed that people worked a day less, they got the same amount of money for it, but their productivity stayed the same, or that it even increased, and it improved staff well-being, health outcomes, retainment, staff retainment, and all of that. We can ban planned obsolescence, as is happening in the EU, and ban advertising in public spaces. So Edinburgh, for example, banned fossil fuel adverts in the city. Universal basic income to kind of decommodify basic services and needs. We can introduce a climate income, so we can tax carbon pollutions and distribute the revenue either directly to people or to finance public services like transport, right? We can end fossil fuel subsidies, etc. So the point is that there is a vast array, and I'm finishing with this. There's a vast array of social and political solutions to climate change that we can advocate for and that are already happening, and that have the power to kind of challenge these kind of growth dynamics. And so with that, if you wanted to switch to the last slide, Stone, I'll leave it. So thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Karina. That was like a beautiful whirlwind of going through the impacts of growth, degrowth, green growth, how we can potentially change things, and yeah, hopefully Peggy, who is next, can shed some more light, going into a bit more specifics on how in terms of transport we can do some cool stuff. So Peggy, if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Great.
So we can start with the first slide. Yes, as Fairwinds Collective, we've been founded 2023. We have kind of the movement topic, Set Sail with Purpose. We are building a sustainable future all together in a community. And we are all entrepreneurs. We can be entrepreneurs of positive change. So we can stand out in creating a network. On the next slide, you will see what we are aiming for and what Fairwinds Collective is standing for. We, of course, want to align with the climate neutral goal for 2050 to promote this as a main topic. We promote a cleaner maritime sector, and we are pointing out that we have different means of transport. We're having a planet full of solutions. We are having a lot of wonderful creative ideas out there, and we are uniting them in the way of sailing, for example, cargo. How do we transport cargo in the future? What kind of solutions do we have? And it's not only one nice, wonderful project. We need to network and connect with each other, and that's what we are providing. So we are promoting a network which is collaborating with each other due the Fairwinds Collective. So on our next slide, we will have an overview about our statement. So we connect sailing cargo and traveling. We promote, this is the blue dots you will see in the middle. We will work in the future more, hopefully more with universities and schools. We have a lot of attraction in that in Amsterdam right now. People want to learn how to transport and consume sustainable, what solutions are out there, because people are understanding right now that there needs to be solutions, and we need just to create visibility, and it's all of us. It's not only Fairwinds Collective itself, it's the members of them, and that's what we facilitate. So it's also about science and research and education. It is a very basic point that we are also working on, like for example, SOUP we are working with right now. It's shaping an ocean of possibilities to equip sustainable sailing ships with measurement systems who are pointing out what kind of positive impact your consumption can have, and to follow this, to empower people to think of their way of consumption. And of course, we are related directly with the AZS, the Enkhuizen Seafood School. It's about sail training, mariners, what they are doing out there, how they also can be educated. And there's a lot of solution and activities to find over there, and events. I highlight that. I come from this point, so I know what it is about. So we are connecting the sustainable topics in a modern and in a traditional way. It's about equality, equity, and empowerment. So this means also female empowerment for female mariners, but also for female scientists at sea, for female educational programs, to pointed out that there's a strength in the female world to find, and that we can look in this direction. It's also about hubs. We are creating hubs right now, and we are hoping that people want to participate. We have a hub in Amsterdam right now, which have a lot of potential. And there's also the Enkhuizen Seafood School, and there's also in Hamburg a hub a little bit in the development state, but it will develop. We have a growing hub in London in the future with the rail charges, but it's something different. So everyone is invited just to use their own place to create hubs of visibility and just to network with us, to unite environmental awareness and the maritime transport for pointing out the positive impact we can have in climate change in the end, that we have solutions out there. Next slide. There's also support needed for the Fair Winds Collective in gaining membership or promoting also the topic. So also speaking and talking about this, like what we are doing right now with Flotilla4Change. We are promoting each other in a way. And that's very important that we keep the discussion up. And that's our next slide. We are networking to build a stronger community which is dedicated to the maritime preservation. This means we have had also certain events already, like the fair in Den Helder you're seeing there. We facilitate also a place for science and research, for new developments in the sailing sector. And we are inviting people worldwide to come to the discussions and also to talk with our community, and also not only sailors, mariners, scientists, it's people who are just interested in the topic. So we are having also online meetings, we are having Zoom meetings, which are monthly with the sailing cargo sector. We are having meetings also with the scientific side. And of course, internal, we exchange our ideas, our expertise in between each other. We are right now 14 active members, and we are coming to the next slide. We are creating right now a magazine. It's called Set Sail with Purpose, which is the base for a permanent exhibition. This is the place which you're seeing there. It's in Amsterdam. We get a spot from Carp Cargo, which is a sailing project transport by Wiedemann, which is participating in Flotilla4Change, for example. And this is the spot where we can have the products, where we see how seafaring works, what solutions we have, and it's uniting a place. So visibility for projects is the next slide, which is very important for us to showcase people who just get attracted, that they walk by, also drink maybe a nice coffee and have a conversation about topics. It's inviting in the future. So we are building this up for 2026, latest 2027. We can go to the next slide. We also invite sailors to get connected because they are the kind of missioners. They are transporting a message. When they are going from harbor to harbor, people get attracted. Oh, there's a sailing ship, or what are they doing there? So they can also transport a message, which means we are connected to the Nautical College in Enkhuizen. We provide sailors who are aware of the environmental topic, for example, but we are also showcasing there on events what solutions we have, and promote traditional sailing and modern sailing. So there's also courses coming up at the AZS. They have already happened. So you can check it out if you're personally interested. Next, our need and call to action is next slide. Yes, that we need to have also volunteer-based support. We are building up a financial contribution possibilities right now, and we just gain strength by uniting with each other. Next slide is how can you get involved with the Fair Winds Collective. Ross Porter and I have been talking about the Sail Cargo Alliance, and he said, hey, Fair Winds Collective is uniting everybody. You have the strength. You have no personal interest in a certain cargo or means of transport mission. You are promoting sustainability. So please connect and collaborate as you do already. And we are a growing network. So this means we are uniting the projects which are already existing. We don't create new projects by themselves, but we create impact by networking and setting them together and say, hey, this is your contact. But how to make a impactful contribution, we are working on that right now, on sponsorships, fundings, donations. If you have any ideas out there or want to connect with us, please do so. And we contribute with our own skills, and we network with the sustainable solutions which we have out there, and we are also creating ideas together. So we have different meetings online and in person. We have the hub in the Netherlands several hubs, actually 2 right now. We have also Den Helder with fair transport. You might have eaten the wonderful chocolate already, which is sailed. And we can come to the next slide. To stay afloat, we are working on this right now. So creating.
You have about 1 minute left, Peggy.
Yeah, that's perfect. Coming to the next slide. We are also searching for partners like you are out there, scientific workers, university research, but building up the platform means also, we are coming to the next slide, we are building up a website which is becoming more professional day by day. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities, which comes to the next slide. We have a wonderful spot, which you see over there with the overview of the harbor of Amsterdam. And we can jump over the next slides, that we can come to the annual congress, our key activities. So next slide. And we have one, yes. So we have congresses, we have certain events. So we can go to the next slide. We have Sail Amsterdam, where we are promoting sustainable sailing projects, which are there with us, and you are invited maybe to collaborate with us over there as well. It's Sail Amsterdam, it's the next one. It's one of the biggest events in Europe about sailing, and you can contact us directly. Please jump to the next slide. For the next events which we are on, we are also at the Amsterdam Seehavendage, but also in the Den Helder traditional shipping fair. Cosmo Wassenaar, who is also here right now, is one of the very active board members and also principal of the Nautical College, who puts in all his expertise and his network of the Nautical College. So there's the next slide and also the last slide. You're invited to join. We already did set up several events, and we are continuing, as you see, in June with the magazine publication about sustainable sailing projects. Flotilla4Change will be there as well, implemented. We have also scientific projects like Tilvera expeditions, who are sailing in the north right now for the maritime heritage. There's a lot of different solutions out there. We are pointing them out, we are making them visible, and we are very happy to be with you right now. Please continue along the way of saving our planet. That's very important. The only solution is hope, and that's what we are creating here together right now. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Peggy. A beautiful introduction to the Fair Winds. Just want to allow just a minute to let the first two speakers, just to let that land and settle with you. You know, we had this pull through of the growth, that understanding of GDP, of essentially what my outcome was, that at some point the money in the company,
dejar entrar realmente al su conocimiento, conciencia, lo que acabas de compartir con nosotras.
Elle, I can hear your can you hear me? I think you can now. Yes, sorry. Maybe I was on mute before. But I just want to just highlight what we've gone through. So, you know, we looked at degrowth and alternative systems, at true cost, and at GDP and at overshoot, particularly the overshoot that we're experiencing in Europe. But how this isn't leading to happiness, and that there are alternatives. And, you know, there's this idea of green growth, but actually even within green growth, the power dynamics are remaining, and we need to address those. So we have that amazing solution, just one solution, you know, but with the Fair Winds Collective, that's one idea, one way where we can show industry can change. But it's not just, you know, transport of people, it's transport of cargo, it's transport of culture and stories and of messages as well, which is such a beautiful thing. So these alternative systems that we have for me, that's where that happiness can start to pull through, and we can address that that overconsumption. We can be consuming words and stories instead of things to fill our hearts and our minds. So I hope that's landed with you a little. And now we have, I believe, August, who is going to be sharing the perspective of a young person. It's so nice to have you. Thank you so much.
Bien, bueno, voy a hablar como con cortes para que él le pueda traducir bien y no sea mucho. Y bueno, obviamente respetando el tiempo que nos dieron a los oradores. Bueno, como bien comentaba Karina en mi presentación, yo soy parte de una organización juvenil ambiental, soy de Argentina, y principalmente lo que quiero destacar, digamos, en este evento es por qué es importante de que los jóvenes se involucren en la lucha ambiental. Bien, no sé si ahí querés traducir, Ere.
So Agus says hello to one and all, and just to note that she'll make little cuts in her presentation so that I, as the translator, will has a chance to translate. So she's delighted to be here. Her presentation is going to focus on really the experience of the young people in the fight again for climate justice, and why the participation of youth is so important.
Bien, bueno, principalmente tiene que ver que estamos atravesando una situación actual que realmente nos invita, digamos, a repensar la forma que tenemos de producir, de consumir y de desenvolvernos económicamente, donde claramente los jóvenes están muy interesados en poder participar de esas nuevas tomas de decisiones.
So we're really at a moment where we're invited to rethink our modes of production and consumption, our economic systems, and of course the young people have every interest to be right at the heart of those conversations.
Las nuevas generaciones entendemos de que ese concepto de progreso infinito no se hizo realidad ni se hará realidad porque estamos en un planeta donde sus recursos claramente son finitos.
So we're part of a generation which is very clear that that the notion of infinite growth is false, and that we're on a planet with finite resources.
En este sentido, las juventudes de todo el mundo ya hace varios años están empezando a movilizarse para exigir políticas climáticas acorde a la urgencia actual.
So the young people all across the world are mobilizing and starting to articulate and call for policies which are which meet the challenges that we face currently.
Bien, sí, si quieres, Paradón, puede ir cambiando la foto.
Just next one.
Ok. Bien, si bien en la actualidad se ha avanzado un poco, digamos, con relación a rechazar un sistema adultocentrista, en la actualidad aún los jóvenes no participan activamente en espacios de toma de decisión y representan solo el 3% de esta participación en los parlamentos del mundo.
So we have made some progress in challenging the very centralized ways of concentrating power, but the young people are still not participating at a level that they should. And we note that globally, only of parliamentary representatives, only 3% of global parliamentary representatives are young people.
Bien, de acá nace la necesidad de que los movimientos juveniles puedan seguir creando redes junto a otros movimientos de diferentes luchas sociales, como lo son la lucha por la justicia social, la lucha feminista, la lucha campesina y la lucha indígena.
So young people's movements are very aware that they wish to and need to connect with other social justice movements, such as movements of young people, of indigenous people, of feminists.
Porque son sectores que históricamente han sido excluidos y marginalizados y que además las luchas de estos distintos sectores se interrelacionan, ¿sí? Como es el caso de la crisis climática, que es transversal a todas las problemáticas sociales.
So these are sectors that have traditionally been marginalized and excluded, where in fact they are very closely interrelated, and that is very, very clear in the context of climate change.
Bien, algunas de las imágenes que están compartiendo tienen que ver con acciones que en este caso mi agrupación fue realizando, donde nosotros lo que hacemos es, si bien concientizar sobre la crisis climática, también poder hablar sobre cómo las otras luchas se relacionan con el cambio climático.
So the images that we're seeing here are images of AUS's group and her colleagues and some of the actions that they take to raise awareness about climate change and the need for action to arrest it.
Realmente quiero destacar que es muy importante de que podamos actuar en forma de red, de manera colaborativa, como es también este evento, porque es muy necesario de aunar, digamos, todos los esfuerzos para poder lograr realmente un cambio sistémico.
So AUS is really underlying the importance of working together, working in a networked and collaborative way, such as in this experience of this event, because it is the only way that we will really challenge the current systems.
En este sentido, las juventudes no solamente tienen mucho para decir, sino también mucho por hacer, y por eso es importante de que podamos seguir presionando para ocupar más lugares en los espacios de toma de decisión.
So the young people have a lot to say and a lot to do, and for that reason, it's really important that they keep pressing for space where they participate in spaces where decisions are being taken.
Porque somos nosotros quienes vamos a seguir fortaleciendo este mundo, digamos, la sociedad, porque vamos a seguir básicamente viviendo. Entonces tenemos derecho en participar en la construcción no solamente de nuestro presente, sino de nuestro futuro.
So after all, young people are those who will keep living in this society, and as such, we are the ones who need to be participating fully in the construction of the present and the future.
Bien, y lo último que quiero destacar es el rol que las juventudes les damos a la educación, una educación integral, una educación que realmente empodere a las juventudes de que su voz es necesaria, de que su voz genera un impacto.
So what AUS really wants to emphasize here is the importance of education, that it is integral in the way that it's constructed, that it empowers young people so that they are aware of the importance of their voice being shared and heard.
Bien, y lo último que no quiero dejar de agradecer es la posibilidad de estar en este espacio hablando en mi lengua nativa y que hayan considerado poner un intérprete para que todos puedan entenderme y yo pueda hablar en mi lengua. Muchas gracias.
And last but not least, just to thank the organizers of the event for ensuring that there's interpretation and that AUS can speak in her mother tongue. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really happy that you were able to make it. And thank you so much for presenting and sharing that on behalf of young people and what you'll be taking forward in society with and for us. And last but definitely not least, we have Leo, who will be speaking I think a little bit about the importance of the Indigenous voice and indigeneity, what it means to be Indigenous. I might ask a few questions about that as well in the panel. So over to you.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, and I really love to hear all the different narratives. And I also find it very, I'm blessed that before one of the speakers were really talking about the dynamics of, for example, colonization and capitalism and why we are actually here. So in this way, I can skip that. That's really nice, but still we can't skip it because I have seen so many things that people are talking about solutions or talking about climate justice or degrowth, but none of these are actually handful tools for indigenous peoples, because it's not our homework. It's not something that we should do. There are so many other things that we need to focus on, but it's still like sometimes it's a language of the people with, maybe more resources in terms of knowledge. But also, I feel sometimes like I need to emphasize also the impact of colonization. And often I tried, first of all, to see, of course, the celebration of indigenous peoples, like the impact, the role, the important role they take for potential solutions. You can see in the data, because people always like to see data, and I rather not put Mother Earth in data, but still it's this world. So let's speak with the language that you see that so many things indigenous people are responsible for. 80% of the world's biodiversity is being protected by indigenous people. And when you think about the forest, 33 of all those forests intact are on indigenous lands. When you think about the critical raw materials, where are they? Of course, more than 45 are on indigenous lands. So it's not a coincidence, and you can leave the slide now, because many people now would like to focus on the data. I rather would like you to focus on the narrative. So if you can skip the slide, then we can really also talk about that. I'm not sure if I'm losing you. So, okay, I think
You're
I'm
great.
back.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
yes. So what is the impact of colonization? What does it mean for me? Well, first of all, I am here based in the Netherlands, and that's actually the Lion's Den. This is the place where decisions are being made. This is the place where many people, the International Criminal Court, many banks, many politicians, it's all decided here. And in some way, my ancestors decided that I should be dropped here. And that's the toughest task I have done in my life. I think it's by far the most difficult one, because I was dropped here not with the consent of my mother. No, I was taken. As many other indigenous people, the stolen generation were taken. So how do I see then the climate justice conversation without taking into account the deep hurt of the ancestors, the deep hurt of my indigenous siblings, that where they maybe they need to cope, they need to heal, they have so much other homework than thinking about, for example, climate justice policies. So in that sense, it's also very interesting that I see sugar coating policies, I see greenwashing policies, I see a lot of assumptions that actually not helpful. The COP16, we are making peace with history, or peace with nature. It was called peace with nature. Well, in many indigenous languages, there is no word as peace. There is no word as nature. There is no word as climate. So still, the colonial language is being dropped on indigenous people. So we are with less than 5% like still left of the whole world population. So we need something to make us being heard, or to emphasize our role. But as you can imagine, the deep hurt is also hindering, not only from a personal point of view, it's also something that is guiding us somewhere else. So where many people are trying to find out how can we do technical innovations, how can we make sure that we step out from the fossil fuel, that we have this, green transition? Well, you can see now that we are actually repeating history, because most of those materials are on indigenous lands. So if we are going to say no, what are you going to do? Are you going to invade our lands? Are you going to make sure that it's still there for Europe? How are you going to pull this down, pull this off? so many questions we have as Indigenous youngsters, but also as women. So what I try to do for myself is, first of all, I would really love to heal. I would really love to feel community. I would love to reclaim identity, the kinship. Where do I belong to? This whole notion of Indigenous diaspora is very much like a lived concept. So how can we make sure that we find ways to reconnect with our cultures? And on top of that, the funny part is I was dropped here to learn the master's tools, to have access to the university, to have access to the Lions Den. And it's a tough job, it's a tough mission being here. But now I also, capable of using the white man's language. I was at the COP28 and someone mentioned, oh no, it's full. This event you can't attend. Now I know the assertiveness of white people. Why is this full? Are you really letting an Indigenous woman down? So I can't attend for what reason? So I know now how to step up for myself. And that is something that I really would like to share with other Indigenous peoples all over the world, because it's a tough job, not only fighting for the rights or to have knowledge, what are your rights, but also to make sure that you stand up for yourself, this way of empowering. So in sum, many things in my work is related to advocacy. It's related to something that is called being firm about upholding Indigenous principles, the very sacred principles that are ancestral, that are like for 1,000 years running through our veins. The principle of reciprocity, the principle of responsibility, the principle of do no harm, the principle of gratitude. But also in that light, we need to step up for our siblings. So I went this year to Suriname to support my Indigenous siblings when they were really facing a multinational that could have been harmful, and we stopped it. So it's something maybe that is interesting to learn how Indigenous advocacy actually work. And when you think about climate justice and you have no aware or knowledge about Indigenous rights, then I suggest that that's the first basic step you need to take into account. So what are Indigenous rights in this sense? Well, there are so many rights. They are really also in jurisdictions. It's really to be found everywhere, but sometimes it's really also hard to recognize. So let me first start with the rights of recognition. So I have the fullest right to be recognized as an injured party. Consider the kidnapping of me. Consider I am part of this people, the community. Yes, there is a recognition granted. I have also the fullest rights to be recognized as a legal entity, not only as a person, but also as a collective. So we have collective rights that should be upheld and integrated in different constitutions. And there's something else, because we are talking about the future, but we should take into account our responsibility to look in history. What did we break? What did we destroy? So the rights to the reparations, the rights to non-repetition, that it will never happen again. It's written down in legislation. It's written down in jurisdiction. But I think that many people don't have awareness about it. So in that light, of course, I really wanted to go to the COP, to be there, to hold people, stakeholders accountable. But in many ways, the access to these kind of conferences is limited, and they don't want to share, the NGOs in the Netherlands, to grant me an accreditation, or they don't want to share other resources. And that is a breach in Indigenous principles in the very first start. Because if we don't know how to do reciprocity, how can you be happy? how can you balance? How can you make sure that you are really doing something for Mother Earth? So in many ways, you see that there is also the danger of appropriation, cultural appropriation, the theft of intellectual work. There's so many people are now PhD, Ubuntu, or whatever they have been studied, and then they go and they have the fullest opportunity, while we do need to take care of our traumas, our intergenerational traumas. Sometimes we are hindered by the lack of resources. So it's a very unequal world. So the only way to step up, the only way to make sure that we grant Indigenous people to actually have a voice is sometimes to, to make some space, to make sure that if there is a way that you can speak, invite an Indigenous speaker for you, and just don't show up. Just make sure that the Indigenous have the fullest access to all kind of resources, because we are now facing a hard time, and we are not going to make it if we are still following procedures or assumptions coming from the global north. So to conclude, because I don't know how much time I have, and maybe I should be a rapper to work with time and with words. But I think when you really want to ask me, why do you want to go to the COP? Well, as a person, I also want to learn. I want to feel community. I want to be connected with elders. I am lacking ways to learn more, because in the Netherlands, where can I learn? I mean, it's only university, or it's the wide assumptions of what we can do for solutions. So I need to find my way to the elders to make sure that I am also being empowered. And if there is anything that I can do for the other siblings, my Indigenous siblings, I will do, because I am here in an alliance then. I have no problem of making sure that whatever a stakeholder needs to be held accountable, I will hold them accountable. I will make sure that they have a full understanding that sometimes the best way is just to give Indigenous people the space in all possible ways. And yes, we do want to invite you for ceremonies, for other ways to connect, to make sure that we feel happy. But being happy is maybe one solution. I would suggest that we share, and that we really go to the reciprocity, and that we really go to something else, and that's maybe found in the heart and the souls of each one of us. And I'm not talking only about humans. I'm talking about the whole concept of species. So plants need to be happy, animals need to be happy, creeks need to be happy, little future children need to be happy, ancestors, they also have the right to be happy. So there's a whole task, a responsibility that needs to be shared. And I would hope that there is a way that we can make sure that Indigenous people don't feel alone, that I feel empowered, that other people feel like, yes, you are not alone. And in this way, I want to conclude, and I'm happy for other people to ask lots of questions. And I also would like to do that myself to make sure that we have a nice conversation together. So thank you so much.
Leo, thank you. That was beautiful. Yeah, really appreciate you speaking from the heart, or not just the heart, but your whole being. Yeah, really inspiring. I just want to give everyone a minute to let that all settle. We've heard a lot here. And sometimes we just need to allow some space for that. So I just give a little recap as well from the last two speakers. We had August from the climate justice movement and for young people, talking about the ways that we need to rethink production and consumption, that, you know, we have finite resources, and whilst some progress has been made for young people, it's not enough. We need more representation for young people across the board. And it was so beautiful to hear August speaking about that need for connection, you know, so all of these marginalized sectors, you know, feminist, indigenous, young, all, you know, there's that common thread of being marginalized, and we need to ensure that that connection stays true. And we can do that through networking. We can do that through education and empowerment. And I'm going to ask a little bit more about what that education looks like when we go into a bit more discussion. And then, as we say, we had Shout to Leo speaking about just so many things and so beautifully woven in. But as she said, this is not their homework. It's difficult. I'm not Indigenous. And I go, what do I do? What do I need to do? It's not her job to tell me what needs to happen. It's our job to figure out how we can best support them. And hopefully we probably won't always get it right. Definitely won't always get it right, but hopefully we can do some things to support you. That impact of colonization and the importance of Indigenous peoples in protecting forests, in protecting biodiversity, and the essence of I don't want to say natural resources, because those are that's something we use. Is earth, it's being, it's matter, and yeah, I really being part of the stolen generation, that's incredibly difficult, that you have to work through that. And so trying to allow Indigenous people to have space to work through those traumas. Yeah, you also spoke about the colonial language, and hopefully we can learn new ways of speaking, as well as you say, like reclaiming your identity, reclaiming that sense of belonging. It's something I'm working a lot on as well at the moment. I have Indian heritage and grew up in the States, but we were living there illegally without papers, and coming back to the UK, finding that sense of where do I belong? So I understand on many levels, maybe not all of the levels, but thank you for sharing. And ways that we can step up. Reciprocity, I want to ask more about that as well when we come to the discussion. Yeah, gratitude and those Indigenous rights to recognition, the collective, and the history, and rights to reparations, which is something we need to be working towards across the board for Indigenous people, for people in the global South, for colonized places. You know, we call them independent, but the colonial and neo-colonial powers are still have their tentacles where they shouldn't be, and yeah, hopefully we can at least bring some solutions forward. So I just want to pause there and say thank you so much to all of our speakers. I'm going to bring it back to the flotilla just for a minute. Dom, if you have a slide there. I know you've been popping the slides up. Sorry, I haven't been saying anything because I wanted to keep that the flow going. But just so you're aware, there's many ways to support the flotilla. We can share this at the end of the discussion as well, but there are some QR codes. I don't know if they'll work on their screens if they're big enough, but just yeah, you can donate to the organization. A little bit of money can go a long way. The money is, we've got a small budget, but somebody has given us a donation to help the project, and that money is, you know, going to pay Indigenous people's time. It's going to ensure this project can run safely and smoothly, and it's going to ensure that we have this network, so we're able to connect. So we appreciate donations. We are looking for ways for people to sponsor boats. You can join our mailing list, and ultimately you can join the flotilla if you want to come and sail with us to Belém. You're more than welcome. So I'll just pause there. Hopefully everyone has had a minute to get a sip of water and a drink. And we're just going to have a little bit of discussion now. And then once we've had a little discussion, we can open it up to the floor if there are some other questions. So if you can stop sharing, Dom, and we will open up to, is there a way to view everyone? I invite people as well to turn on their videos if they'd like to, so it feels like we have more faces in the room. If you would like to, just so you know, it is being recorded. So one of my questions, and this is to everyone, and I'll try not to take too long to explain it. Essentially, I have been trying to understand indigeneity and what it means to be indigenous. And I am curious essentially about what indigenous means and feels to the panel. And in what ways can we gain the courage to relearn our indigeneity? That's something from one of my dear friends, Momo. They've been looking into this idea because there's this sense of it, something is missing in us, and you know, a lot of us feel lost. But when I start to think and feel about this kind of indigenous being, it's lurking, it's somewhere, and I'm curious if there are ways that you've tried to bring this out in your being, and if so, how.
Well, I can start maybe. Well, what you also mentioned yourself, being indigenous, like how it was before the colonization, of course, that part is destroyed. And that part is something that we should regain or reclaim. In that sense, it's also very difficult to ask indigenous what is indigenous. So you have a UN definition, and there are maybe some elements in it, but for everyone, it's also very different. So how I see it is, first of all, the concept of remateriation is that there is a need that you need to reconnect with the land you are living in, with your environment. And there is always a need for adapt. So there is something, for example, I am also a poenter, coming from the poen tree. Well, in the Netherlands, there are no poen trees. So I should adapt. And this is really something also maybe a lesson for all, that there is no, you need to accept that sometimes things are broken, historical injustices, but there is a need for us to remember and to reclaim, to make sure that we are empowered to feel what we feel. And it's really not about your skin color, or something that it's only for people from the global south. I think it's very much important that whoever you are, in whatever body you are, whatever land or environment you are, to make the first step that you feel like, okay, I'm going to help this mother. I'm going to support her. I'm going to take care of her. That's the very basic of caretaking. And it is not really about gender as well. No, I hope that, for example, when there are children in danger, that we all step in to make sure that that child is being protected. So for me, it is really about connecting the dots with the broken ones, the fallen warriors, to find out if there are still stories to tell, to remember, and to reshare. If there are any ways that I can be part of the knowledge system, then I should step up and make the responsibility to do so. So it's really not about, oh, I have the right to be indigenous. No, it's about I have the responsibility to act, to make sure that I am here to the fullest for this mission. And that's, for me, is being indigenous. It's being like not trying to pursue my own career, No, it's really about the collective. So what are you going to do to share your world, to share your position? So that is also for me being indigenous, that it's not about you. And we often tend that if we're going to, drive electric, or if I'm going to do this, or if I am going to feel, it's not about you. It's totally not about you. It's about us as a whole. And that part, that is something that we can explore more without doing harm, to find connection with whatever is surrounding you. If this is helpful, I hope so. Then of course, then becoming indigenous, it is so simple. It's the easiest way of becoming the better human you are.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else from the panel like to share?
I can share some thoughts if that works. So yeah, I mean, I think Chadilia touched on this already. I think what we can think about, or what we would need to think about, or sort of, I guess, denaturalizes the idea that this disconnect from nature, and that I am me and I'm only me and I can only take care of myself and I don't need anyone else, that is natural. And I think, that's, a lot of work when, under capitalism and colonialism has gone into naturalizing this, but there's nothing natural about it. And I think challenging that sort of disconnect, I can't say, speak whether that is indigeneity or not, but I think for sort of trying to problematize that and trying to say, well, actually no, we all depend on each other, and we're all made out of human and non-human parts in our body, and we rely on everybody else on this planet to sustain us and everything. So I think I don't know, coming back to sort of some academic work, Carolyn Merchant, when she wrote The Death of Nature, was talking about the way in which that early period of early modernity, early capitalism and closure, how that kind of in Europe changed the cosmology, or changed the way in which people related to nature. So the idea that people had the sense of nature being an organism, and of that needed to be protected and needed to be taken care of, and that nature was a mother looking after us, and that with the transformation to capitalism and the kind of suppression of women's knowledge, that became nature became like a wicked stepmom, because we now needed to justify somehow culturally digging into the bowels and extracting resources from mountains, and kind of mining coal and mining tin and slate and all those things, right, that were needed for the industrial revolution later on. And so there's nothing kind of natural about this state of being, that we think that the world is out there, we're here, and there's a barrier between us. And I think that's quite important to do. And I also like that kind of idea about kind of, in terms of reciprocity, kind of what have you done for nature? Because, I assume that we're on this call, we all care about the natural world, and the natural world kind of feeds us and sustains us every day. But then, kind of, if we pause and think, well, what have we done? Have we not taken that flight where we could have either not traveled or taken a slower route by bus or whatever it might be? Have you, thought about what goes on into your breakfast bowl, and how that might influence the way in which you produce harm to others, across the world, or, in your own country? And I think, the other thing that, and again, maybe that's moving away from your question, Karina, but what Chadilia was sort of saying, it's not about you, made me think about the way in which we individualize climate action, or in which big oil and gas companies have put the onus on consumers, or on individuals to do the recycling, when really recycling is a tiny total of your carbon footprint, or of your environmental footprint. And they've really put the onus on us to come up with this individual climate action that's the best thing you can do to address climate change. And I think that really disempowers people because it's super overwhelming, and because, you know, well, you know, every one of us has limited power. And it made me think about something that Marianne Hegler has written about. She talks about climate commitment rather than climate action, and how she sort of, you know, to recognize that we need to be in this for the long haul, and we need to kind of commit ourselves to always, over and over again, need to make this commitment to the right decision about climate and how we might contribute to all of this. And not everybody can, you know, either give lectures, or not everybody can sail the ocean sustainably, but what is it that we can do, that we can contribute? Or, you know, not everyone's a, you know, amazing storyteller, but everybody of us is good at something. And if we can put this in the service to something bigger, that sort of Jodile was saying as well, maybe that's where that kind of, not indigeneity in the sense that, you know, will belong to a particular group comes in, but that kind of being part of something bigger.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katarina. Would anyone else like to share? I'm going to share a little quote. I hope that's okay. From Martin Prechtel. I say little, it's a little long. Well, hopefully it's not too long. But it's just something that I've been chewing on over the last couple of days. So we must, as individuals and communities, take the time necessary to learn how to indigenously remember what a sane, original existence for a viable people might look like. To begin remembering our indigenous belonging on the earth, back to life, we must metabolize as individuals the grief of recognition of our lost directions, digest it into a valuable spiritual compost that allows us to learn to stay put without outrunning our strange past, and to get small, unarmed, brave, and beautiful. By trying to feed the holy in nature, the fruit of beauty from the tree of memory of our indigenous souls, grown in the composted failures of our past need to conquer, watered by the tears of cultural grief, we might become ancestors worth descending from, and possibly grow a place of hope for a time beyond our own.
Nice.
And that was Martin Prechtel. Yeah.
I really like it. And in that sense, it's also not only to remember, or how this poem put it very nicely, and also the words of Katarina was very nice to make it also complete. But when we don't hold, you know, the stakeholders accountable, for example, the Netherlands, there are in Suriname only 3% left of all the indigenous peoples. Many people don't even know the names of the indigenous communities. It's really harmful when we think that the colonization started with enslavement or slavery. Well, there is often the tensions that we forget. Oh, there were actually people living there. So in relation to, for example, what happens in the current situation in Gaza, can you imagine that there is this whole population of all wisdom keepers, all indigenous people who could have been like amazing in light of solutions, and we are still left with 5% worldwide. In Brazil, it's not even 1%. So it's really harmful that we think that by only changing our individual behavior that we will come there. No, it's also the responsibility that our ancestors wanted us to live in this system. They wanted to be in this system because they were really in favor of capitalism. So there is no way that we can say a post-capitalism era without doing reparations. It's really that you go blindfold to the future, that there is no need for you to hold accountable. Well, the very first thing is when I break something, a glass, I need to clean it up. As simple as this. So if there was a global crime scene in relation to the indigenous peoples, I don't know who to hold accountable, But for sure, we need to think about the future. And the future generations, they have the intergenerational trauma to face. So if we are really talking about degrowth, I also would like to invite us how to, work to the reciprocity, that's in abundance, that the reciprocity is very much in place, and that we hold space for people, that we make space for people, and that we make sure that there is a way that we can mourn, because we always want to be happy. But there is a way that if we're going to mourn, we're going to hold space for the trauma. And within the trauma, there's also so many wise teachings that we can look into. The trauma of the grandmother, the stories that she have been faced or that she have been experienced. To not be afraid, because accountability is also what I have noticed here, that people are afraid of the results, the outcomes of the truth finding, the outcomes, what actually happens, and that they are punished. But it's not in a way that we are punishing people. No, we want to make sure that there is enough love for all, but we do need to make sure that we're going to restore. And that is maybe something else, rather than only being in the spiritual way of being. Spiritual, indigenous, for me, it's also hardworking. Every single day, I need to have a look with myself, check in. Did I do reciprocity? Did I take responsibility? Where is my lack of accountability? That's for me the spiritual part. So it's not about being belonging to a certain group. It's also belonging to Mother Earth, that I should be held accountable to her. That's the only mission I have. So maybe that's also something that we can, integrate in this nice storytelling.
Anyone else want to jump in? But yes, totally, I completely agree. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. As you say, it's not just about the that spiritual journey or identity. It's about the practical and the accountability as well. Thank you, Katharina.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say, talking about kind of, practical way of doing things and maybe showing what we want to see in the world. I think, what Peggy's doing and, what she's been talking about, what the flotilla is doing, that's, being the change that you want to see. That for me is degrowth, that, we're taking fossil fuel journeys out, we're reducing harm, we're kind of working, inching our way, towards a different way of doing so, and hopefully bringing others along the way. Even the way this event is run today, for the way you facilitate this, Karina, I think for me is super degrowth, because we're taking it a bit more slowly, we're taking time to kind of to reflect, which is really nice, because you don't I feel a lot less, tired or, burned out after sometimes this sort of high stress event. So yeah, for me, that's really important. So I think, yeah, just I wanted to say that. And I think the other thing that struck me was the statistics that Cecilia showed in the beginning about the critical raw materials. And I think that's where, we really need to ask these questions about, the green energy or the energy transition, who's benefiting from it and who's paying the price for it. And, if the ones paying are indigenous peoples who already have, given and had to pay such high prices for the development that we have experienced, and the resources that we have taken, then that is a problem. And so reducing the overall amount of stuff that we have, that we produce, that we consume, is one way of reducing those pressures, and, kind of need to find ways in which we can hear those voices. Because, my work's in Colombia, my research on kind of green extractivism in Colombia and in La Guajira, but also in the Amazon, where, you've got a big copper mine that's, in indigenous reservations and a tropical biodiversity hotspot that is justified with the energy transition, because we now need these materials. But then, sort of how do we actually make these voices heard and involve these in the discussions, because, you know, globally we need to have these conversations kind of, you know, and what we're doing with those materials. Do we build a cyber truck or 100 e-bikes, you know, or 1,000 e-bikes probably, kind of, you know, so that's a question about economic democracy as well.
Well, if I can reply to this, because it's a very essential discussion we need to have, because 85% of lithium is on indigenous lands. So if there is a respect for indigenous rights, that means free, prior, and informed consent. So if there is no consent, how are you going to solve the climate crisis when you don't get access to the resources? It's very much like an interesting dialogue about ethics. But also, it's also a tension and a danger that it's going to be abused, this climate crisis, that we say it's critical. Exactly what happened in Iraq with the human rights, it's critical. So we need to be there, we need to invade. And there are always arguments for geopolitical reasons that we need to have the access. Well, now you can see that in many cases, the indigenous, they do have rights now, but it's of course not binding. So in what way can we respect this new challenge, that we are not making, that we respect the right to non-repetition, but also to make sure that if there is going to be innovations or technical whatever solutions, and there is a need for those resources, how are we going to solve it? In many cases, the Critical Raw Material European Act doesn't take into account the role of the indigenous peoples. They are saying consultation rather than consent. So it's just like they going to say, oh, we have a meeting like this, so you are consultants, but you have no rights to say anything about it. We're going to invade your home. So this is something that it's the part of my work, is to find ways in doing the advocacy and to leave the green transition as it is. If it's not right-based, if it's not just led, then what are we doing? We are repeating history. And it will be very damaging when you see that the things, for example, our data are crystal clear right now. But if I don't have the access to speak up, if I don't have the access to go to the climate conferences, so what are we doing then? So it's really something that we should take into account, and to make sure that data is also very much part of my work. So it's not only about being spiritual or healing or whatever. No, it's really about making sure that data is also part of the work that we are doing now. So it is something to look into the indigenous people, not only about their rights, but also about agreements, whatever they want to shut us down. They want to make sure that we are not visible. They're talking about local communities rather than indigenous peoples. All like elements to make sure that we are invisible. And when you talk about climate, we are now talking about the rights of nature. So the rights of nature is also now a new angle that we're going to have, and that we are very much now into this. So we skipped the rights of indigenous, and we are now celebrating the rights of nature. Well, who actually invented this? Who started it? It was the Maori people, and they are just skipped out of the whole conversation. Regenerative culture? Where is this coming from? Or no, it's not coming from here. It's indigenous. So they skip it, and to make sure that it's something new, edgy. Well, I am seeing it, and it's called plant grazing. Well, I can say plant grazing to my uncle, and he's saying, the what? Is this really a concept? Is this defined? Why? It's just part of what we're doing. So in many ways, we need to have more conversation where we invite also data as something that we can discuss.
Thank you, Chancelie. I really appreciate it. I'm just wanted to change the tone slightly, not the tone, but just I guess I'm just looking at the time here, and I'm really keen to hear from the panelists on it. And on the COP. You've mentioned it a few times, and so this is a question for the panelists. Who has previously attended COP? And it would be great to hear a couple of your experiences.
Am I the only one who attended the COP?
I've been to a COP as well, but did Peggy want to come in? Had you
I also
unmuted
thought,
yourself?
Yes, no, I didn't participate in a COP yet. The topic changed, but there is a thing. My grandpa inspired me in a way. He just started planting trees in a city, and everybody was laughing at him and saying, "Hey, why are you investing money there?" Now he's dead, but when I pass by, there is a little wooden area right now for a lot of animals, and people like to go through, and he just did. It was not his own land. And I think that's how we can get inspired. We just act. We see crazy things happening right now in the US. And I question myself, how did this happen? Someone just does. So let's do things as we think and as we feel. We don't ask for it, we just do. That's how Fair Winds Collective started. We didn't ask anyone. We just started, and now a lot of people were saying, "Hey, Peggy, there's a lot of hope." Oh, really? Yes, because we have these meetings, we see each other, we know we have allies out there. We are uniting. So let's create allies, let's create visibility, let's exchange everyday thoughts, ideas, vision. Don't be scared of what you are saying, Chatu. With open hearts, let's face our hearts and what is harming us. We shouldn't be feared, we should be open, we should be aware that there is solutions out there with each other, not against each other, and we just take our space. Just a little thing, we are doing a female empowerment tour. Maybe you would like to connect, and we are creating visibility at sea, and the sea is teaching us a lot. That's how I got inspired. The sea is teaching us not to consume a lot. It's teaching us to listen, to observe nature, and if you don't do that on a sailing ship, you die. And this is how we can transport also messages. What do we need to do? We will die without nature. And on ships, I would like to invite every politician just to have a trip of 1 month, at least 1 month, and then you know how important nature is for you to survive and to listen to nature. That's it. Thank you.
Are you Peggy? You're planning to attend this COP? Is that correct?
That would be amazing. I don't know how yet. Yes, I'm privately involved as Fair Winds Collective as a member, Peggy, and let's see how I can do that. I would love to. Yes.
And if you did, because I wanted to ask this question as well, it's almost that, and this question's open to the panel about what demands, if any, you have for the COP. So what outcomes do you want to see? But Peggy, I wanted to ask you in particular, because you said that you can bring, as sailors, you can bring messages. So it's that curiosity about, what messages have you brought previously? And if you thought about, if you were attending COP, what message you'd like to bring?
That we need to listen, that we can unite, and the message is listen to what's surrounding you in nature, and then you find your inner self, then you find home, and then you find answers. If you disconnect what we are doing right now, then you get sick, and you become more sick. And if you use less, you will gain more. But this is just a saying. You need to experience that. And if you can't experience that, then find the stories. There's a lot of stories out there. And if you don't know where to find the stories, just really overthink what you're consuming. You're consuming Instagram every day. Does this make you happy? No. Then change your structure. You can be your own algorithm. It's about your own decision every moment, each day. You can make the decision to be aware of your own life, to master your own life. And this, people are aiming for happiness. But how can you get there? And this is truth. and this means how do you find truth? It's not only one position, it's listening to a lot of different perspectives, and there will never be truth, but you will gain an understanding that life is always changing and that nature is always changing, that you need rain and thunder to have growth in nature, that you can't have only sunshine to grow. And this is, you need strong winds. You need also calm seas. It's a balance of everything. And if we destroy one part, the other part will die as well. And this is what you're experiencing at sea. And this is the white men we were talking about. If you would go to them and go to their home and see it as Mother Nature, as an example, then you take something out of their galley, of their kitchen, step by step, and say, this is mine now, because I'm the owner now. And one day, this home will be empty. Where do you go then? This is an example for maybe a little bit to think bigger, that we can't rob things. We need to invite, also have our own space, of course, but we need to invite to grow. And let's invite people to discussions, and let's regrow LAs. And this is what we can do every day, each day, with a smile, with a welcome, with a say, hey, not today maybe, but tomorrow you're welcome, because I can't today. Let's also open this space.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to bring August in, if they would, if they share, if there's anything they or Life of Pachamama, if they have for COP, what outcomes they want to see, if there are any demands that they're bringing.
Bien, las estaba escuchando atentamente y nada, me parece muy rico la discusión. En mi caso, voy a tratar de hacer breve para que le pueda traducir, pero en mi caso me parece que lo que implica estar en la lucha contra el cambio climático es también hacernos preguntas incómodas, discutir cosas que antes no estábamos dispuestos a discutir, porque justamente lo que buscamos es cambiar el sistema actual, que entendemos que no está cumpliendo con lo que prometió en aquel momento. No sé, Ale, si quieres traducir eso por ahí.
Yeah, Aos has been listening very carefully to the conversation. It's been very, very rich. For her, in this... can you hear me?
Ay, perdón, pasa que creo que
no,
no tengo
perdón.
perdón.
Oh, yeah. For Aos, this is in this fight for climate change. It's important to ask uncomfortable questions. That is the only way that we are going to change this system, which is not fulfilling our needs and interests and desires.
Bien, yo no he participado en la COP. Este año estoy en el programa de Life of Pachamama como para intentar conseguir una beca. Personalmente no estaba muy convencida de esos espacios, pero con el tiempo y con mi activismo me di cuenta que es muy necesario estar, por más de que los resultados después de cada COP no sean los que esperamos, pero es necesario estar porque necesitamos seguir presionando a los distintos líderes, y sobre todo en un caso como es el mío, digamos que soy argentina, que tenemos un presidente que es negacionista del cambio climático, y que existe, digamos, una crisis de representación política. Es necesario que las organizaciones de la sociedad civil puedan estar presentes en todos los espacios disponibles para seguir presionando políticamente.
So Aos has not been to a COP before. She's part of an initiative called the Life of Pachamama, and she's hoping to get some support to continue that involvement. She had previously not been that convinced about the value of meetings such as the COP, but she has sort of changed her mind somewhat here, believing that it's really important that the youth be present and participating in those spaces, because we need to be pressuring leaders for the change that we seek. So AUS is from Argentina. In Argentina, the current president is a climate change denier. And there is a crisis in the sense of the political leadership, and it's essential that civil society get it involved to ensure that there is the right pressure and narratives being promoted in spaces like this.
Y por último, también como obviamente como latinoamericana, es muy importante seguir ocupando estos espacios porque se discute sobre el financiamiento hacia los países que son acreedores ambientales y nosotros debemos defender, digamos, nuestra posición como pueblos latinoamericanos y por eso considero que así sea mínimo la posibilidad, tenemos que seguir participando.
So finally, as a Latin American, considers that it's very important again to be participating in these spaces, particularly when there are conversations about finance, because for many of the many Latin American countries, those questions are absolutely key. And so even if representation is minimal and participation limited, that participation is key and essential.
Can I ask as well about the Declaration for Just Participation? Is that something August has been working on as well with Juan with Life of Pachamama?
¿Hay alguna sí. No, o sea, con Juan, o sea, con Life of Pachamama, en donde estoy es en el programa que se llama Camino hacia la Democratización del Sur, que justamente, nada, es un programa de formación con rumbo a la COP, pero de ahí se seleccionarán algunas personas que serían como las que tendrían financiado la participación y el viaje y todo lo que eso implica para asistir a la COP. Yo estoy en ese programa y es a partir de ese programa que yo también accedo a poder participar de este evento puntual. No sé
So
si
I
es para
was
la COP.
sorry. Oh, sorry. So she's just commenting that she is part of a group within Life of Pachamama, which is called the Road to the Democratization of the South. And it's a project that she's involved in as a training, a bit of capacity building. From that project, as I understand it, a few people will be identified to participate in COP and will receive subsidies. And I was just hoping that she may be one of those people to get support to participate.
Amazing, thank you. And just while we have you, August, and this is kind of open to everyone, August, you touched on education and the importance of education. Are there particular modes or methods or rhythms of education that you have found particularly helpful in your journey so far? For example, capacity building, whether that's like peer-to-peer or like more informal structures or anything really.
Sí, en nuestro caso, o en mi caso, mi agrupación viene de un entorno académico. Bueno, yo soy egresada, pero tengo compañeros que son estudiantes de la universidad, pero aún así buscamos apostar por una educación popular, por una pedagogía crítica. No sé si hasta ahí querés traducir, ¿eh?
Yeah. In Aus's case, she's part of a group that has quite an academic focus, and there are several colleagues who and participants who are studying at university, but there is a real emphasis on popular education.
Bien, esta educación popular justamente lo que busca es poder, digamos, formar, por así decirlo, en un pensamiento crítico que nos permita transformar la realidad. Nosotros confiamos mucho en que ese es el camino para empoderar a las juventudes y que vuelvan a reconocer su rol como actores políticos y actores esenciales para generar un cambio.
So this popular education really puts an emphasis on critical thinking and as a means to changing the reality that people live. Again, of course, it has this emphasis on the youth and encouraging young people to recognize that they have a role to play and that their participation in discussion, decision-making spaces is key.
En este sentido, creo que hay dos cosas que son muy importantes, ya como respondiendo puntualmente la pregunta. Una tiene que ver con entender que el aprendizaje se lo construye de manera colectiva, que uno no viene a insertar, digamos, información en un individuo que no sabe nada.
So there are two things to highlight here. So firstly, we go on the basis of collective learning. So it's not that one person comes with all the information.
Sino que, como decía, el conocimiento se lo construye de manera colectiva y es muy importante lo que esos estudiantes, por así decirlo, tienen para decirnos.
So again, it's this emphasis on collective learning, and it is really important what the students themselves come to tell us and share with us.
Sobre cómo perciben su realidad, sobre qué es lo que creen en el futuro. Y después el otro concepto que considero importante tiene que ver con la democratización de la información, que es justamente lo que aprendo junto a la Expo Pachamama, que tiene que ver con poder ayudar a que el resto de las personas acceda a información que por lo general está más delegada a un nicho.
So just closing the bit on the collective learning. So really, it's this emphasis on students sharing their own thoughts about the current reality and their idea of what the future should look like. And then the second part that Agos wanted to emphasize was work around the democratization of information. So this is a focus on trying to help people to access information that otherwise lies in the hands of an elite or small group of people.
Y ya por último, para cerrar la respuesta, creo que también es importante que desde nuestra narrativa siempre sea empoderante y confiando en que realmente algo se puede cambiar. Muchas gracias.
And finally, we place a lot of emphasis on creating and articulating narratives which put a lot of emphasis on empowerment and on the possibilities for positive change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your contributions. Super appreciated. I think we have time maybe for one or two questions from the audience, if there are any. I'm aware we had a few technical issues with people joining. I'm not sure how many are joining through YouTube. So if anyone would like to unmute themselves and ask questions, you're more than welcome. Dom, go for
Am I
it.
allowed to ask a question?
Mm.
I'm sorry, this is a bit of a lowbrow, kind of practical, physical type question, not which I hope you'll forgive me for. It's probably a question for Katerina. One of your slides, Katerina, said something that was very close to my heart, and it was talking about the climate impact benefits to shorter working weeks, or people doing job shares and less work and so on. And I've heard that anecdotally before, but apart from making people happy, is there any chance you could tell me how that benefits the climate crisis? And I apologize that it's not as wonderfully spiritual, big picture as the other questions, but.
No, I think, Storm, as Chotilia was saying earlier, like we need all of the approaches. We need the spiritual, cultural change, and we need to really drill down into the emissions and the per capita emissions and what people eat, what people do with their free time. So you put the finger on the sort of right on the spot there. So the idea, and sort of as you said, in terms of degrowth or post-growth approaches to this, is that if people have more free time, they'll be able to spend this looking after their children. They'll be able to spend, you know, time with their parents, with their grandparents. They'll be able to spend time with each other and sort of engage, you know, they have time to not buy a ready meal and, you know, maybe cook a meal from scratch, you know, which would presumably create less waste, and sort of by that kind of slowing down, you know, reduce their environmental footprint. So we've got some evidence for this happening, but I absolutely agree with you that, you know, other than the very obvious benefits to health and to well-being that we have already seen, that, you know, people reported being less stressed and being healthier, and, you know, sort of having a greater sense of well-being and connection, that also actually translates into environmentally friendly behavior, because it may well be that, you know, if you switch to a 4-day work week, you know, you have a long weekend and you spend that flying to Ibiza, you know, if you've got the kind of, you know, means to do so. So I think it's really important that we kind of couple these individual policies with, you know, broader, you know, systemic change and broader sort of, I suppose, other policies that then actually, for example, you know, thinking of the context of the UK, do something about domestic flights, and maybe we shouldn't have domestic flights, and maybe we should make train travel affordable, to kind of, you know, couple these social policies that, you know, are good for well-being with, you know, giving, with other option, with other ways of giving people the choice and the ability and the affordability to do things differently, to do things slowly, to, you know, take public transport, all of those things. So I mean, if, you know, that we absolutely need more research into this sort of, you know, we had this big trial in the UK, so, you know, can we, if there is another one, we need to follow this up or accompany with research on the environmental behavior that are resulting of that, you know, free time. So that is a research gap, and you know, thanks for pointing that out. And we just, you know, we need to do more work on that, to see whether that actually will translate into sustainability.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Leo, please.
Well, you asked questions like, was anyone before, like, to the COP? And I was, and I wanted to share briefly, like, one of the experience that I saw, that it broke my heart that you see many people, sometimes like indigenous women, they were on stage. They had like a lack of capacity to speak English. So that's already like a barrier. And then a lot of them were crying because they come from like this conflict zone, and they are dropped to the to like whatever stage, and then you have 1 minute to say what you want, and then the emotion comes, and then you see that I was really like shocked, that I thought I should you know, support them to in terms of public relations, in terms of like how, what to do, like all these kind of elements that I am aware of, or I've been trained by. And then you see also what I would like to see is that many people want maybe to go to the COP, but sometimes it's also very important, just like Greta was doing, to provide space for indigenous peoples. I have like 3 people, indigenous like siblings from India, from Suriname, me, and one from Papua. They all want to go, but it's impossible if nobody is holding space or providing the space. So I am just sitting there hoping for a miracle to go there. And I know every constitution almost by heart, if I must do. I know every agreement, what is needed to make sure that I can hold people accountable. But if nobody is giving me the access and everyone wants to go, then there is limited spots. So then you see that the lack of visibility, the lack of networks, that is something that we should grow into. That there is always a need for indigenous people to go to the COP, and there is always something that we need to be aware of, that it's not about tokenism, or it's not about being there for whatever reason. There are some people like me are there for a job. We are there to go to every multinational who's there, to every, I don't know, president who's there. And I spoke to the French President Macron, And I literally was there to have a conversation with him. And I just mentioned, like you have 1 minute, what I wanted to say. But if this is not granted to me or to one of my siblings, then what are we doing here? I mean, I can improve my data presentations, or for sure I can go to collect even more data, but that's maybe not even the mission I have. The mission is to hold people accountable. So if there's anyone or any organization who can help with this mission, that's something that we should take into account. That yes, we have different responsibilities. And in terms of the youth, in Dubai, when I was there were brave youngsters who were demonstrating inside in the blue zone, what is like really impossible, and it was also forbidden, but they did. So some people are there to demonstrate, some people are there to find out where are the presidents. So in this way, you can really see this in collective efforts, that we put people to certain places and that we give them the tickets and we make sure that people are doing the job, their mission. And in terms of youngsters, I know that they are the ones that needs to learn. I mean, I'm also considered as a youngster. So many elders, indigenous elders, consider me as a youngster, and they say, you need to look at me, you need to listen to me, and you need to copy me. So I also on the wings of the elders. So in this sense, yeah, I'm happy to be here also, but I'm also making sure that we are exactly what Greta is doing. Sometimes she is just paving the way for new future generations to learn and to be to participate and to make sure that they have the the spots. So that's really what I wanted to say. Also, in relation to Greta, it's very inspiring that she's the one that says, "No, it's not my turn anymore. I just pave the way for whoever wants to go."
Thank you so much. That's super inspiring. And that was one of the questions as well I had was, what can we do to help the cause? So that's, making me think, I do have a spot. Should I be giving this spot up for someone else? So thank you for, bringing that up. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things to say about COP, but that is exactly a huge problem: who gets a spot and who doesn't. And last years we've seen ballooning numbers of lobbyists, and they are the reason now that organizations, NGOs aren't getting accredited in time to attend COP33, for example. So we've, the previous processes was that there was a deadline, you submitted your documentation until August or whatever, and then you were able to go in November. But that is not the case anymore. It takes several years now. You can, submit your documentation, and unless, we're organizing a side event at COP33 with, about Indigenous participation at COP33, but we cannot invite anybody we like because they need to be part of an accredited organization. So, it's a sort of catch-22. So I'm working with an organization in Colombia to try to get them accredited. Who knows? They might have the accreditation by COP33. I don't know. That is a huge problem in terms of who's being excluded from these spaces and how they're run. And I don't know. I think at least for COP33, we seem to have a capable presidency who's interested in climate and climate issues. So yeah, and they need to be the ones now kind of, implementing the climate finance that I was talking about. Yeah, so we'll have to see.
Thank you.
Two friends, I will ask them after this meeting because they are participating in the COP30. One is a representative of the Marshall Islands, and the other one is just able to participate because certain invitations. He told me I will ask him and provide information. I can't promise anything, but I will provide information about this, how to participate maybe still.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions from the audience? Right. I have a question, just like really, really brief, if it can be. What can the flotilla do to help your cause?
I would say for me, it would be if you consider yourself as a family, a part of like a community, and that is empowering people you don't know, like indigenous people, sometimes they are also in remote areas. But I hope that if you have the opportunity to be in a room or in a position, that you always make sure that their voices is being heard through your, like what you're trying to say. And I think that this initiative, it's also about, joining with the sense of hope and with a sense of accountability, but also with a sense of like we just go there and we try to make our way, and meanwhile, like the journey is already like also the mission in itself. I hope that the more stories you can collect, the more voices you can represent, and the more people you can maybe invite to join your mission as well. Maybe some people would join your initiative, maybe more than my, for example, mission. And that's totally okay because we are siblings now. So whoever is going to have something doing there, it's already like a collective achievement. So for me, it would be rather, if I'm not able to join this year, make room for me for next year. And I'm sitting here and I'm waiting for the invitation, but I'm also not sitting and waiting because it's really hard working to get my, to get my mission visible. So if there's anything you can help with that, yeah, that's already like maybe a nice task.
Thank you so much. The other panelists, is there anything that the flotilla can do to support you?
I think for me, the question is what I can do to support you guys, really, to be honest. And I mean, today is the least I can do. And, I've promoted, the initiative at university, and, there are people interested in that kind of stuff. And, that includes sharing Peggy's work and Agus's work and Chadileo's work. And I just, again, thank you so much for making this a reality again, sort of, because there is no need for, these carbon emissions to be produced from so many transatlantic flights of people going to COP. So, just for you, to provide this opportunity for people to travel there sustainably is really incredible, and to kind of normalize it and to start these conversations and to show that it's possible and that people are really doing this is, really, really wonderful. So yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Katharina. Really appreciate it. And something you can, August, please, please jump in.
If there is something you could provide that would be in a storytelling way, which would be interesting, podcast in this direction to share the stories. Podcast is easygoing. I'm also a podcaster, so I know how the impact can go. I sometimes meet people which I never would expect that they have been listening to that, and then they surprise me. So you have a lot of outcome out of podcasts. Maybe you
Thank
can
you.
provide something in this direction.
Yeah, sounds great. And August?
Gracias. Sí, bueno, respondiendo a la pregunta, creo que un poco como general, ya sea Flotilla o cualquier otra organización, Para los jóvenes es muy importante que justamente distintas agrupaciones puedan dar estas discusiones incómodas y que puedan construir narrativas que nos hagan creer de que somos muchos los que estamos en esta lucha por crear un presente, una sociedad más justa y sostenible. Así que ya sea que quieran trabajar con jóvenes o no, ya que estén dando esas discusiones, que estén promoviendo esas narrativas, ya es como un labor inmenso. Y bueno, también, igual que dijo Catarina, a disposición desde mi parte para lo que necesiten. Y muchas gracias por esta invitación.
So just in general, and this is directed to the flotilla or any other organization, I think from the point of view of the youth, it's very important that all groups are willing to hold uncomfortable conversations and are making evident through their narratives and work that they do that we are many in this fight and in this effort to create a sustainable and just world. And so whether these are opportunities where youth are involved or not, it's important that everybody is showing the strength of the movement. And secondly, Aro says she's here to help and support in any way. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So that pretty much concludes things. I'll just, as Katharina said, what can you do to support us with the flotilla? I just asked Dom to pop the slides back up. I guess before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much for our panelists for joining this evening. It was a lot to organize, and I hope you found it helpful and connective, and there are some things that you can take away to mull over as well. The process of learning, it can take time. So if you would like to support us, here are the ways. You can do one of many things. You can donate. £3 goes a long way. It's less than half a pint now in the UK. You can also join our mailing list. That's on our website. Check us out, flotilla4change.org. And that's the number 4. And you can say hi on our socials. So we're on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can sail with us. And also, if you have a boat or you want to join, become a partner, then please do get in touch. We're looking for more boats. We have lots of people who want to come to Belém with us, and we need some more spaces on those boats. So if you have a boat or know somebody with a boat, please do get in touch. Thank you so much. And ciao to Leo. I see you have your hand up. Do you have some last words?
Yeah, always like there is what I love of Argus, what you mentioned, to have uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes it's also very like unsafe for the people who are actually starting this uncomfortable conversation. So I hope that we all take something in that sense, that we don't let this do youngsters or indigenous women, because often I have had assumptions that I was something that they thought I was difficult. I was always like something that they don't like. So if we are going with the good flow and with the good vibes, and then I give you all my blessings in the journey you're going to have on the waters. And I hope that you have good faith and that Mother Ocean is taking good care of you. Also, sometimes people forget the amount of work that organizers are doing. So I think that your work have been seen and have been like welcomed. And if there's anything that we can do for you, especially like what Katarina mentioned, be very sure of what you're doing. And it will be maybe hard, maybe days that maybe on the waters, you maybe will, feel doubts. But then hopefully this session, the launch of this initiative, maybe give you good vibes, that we are there for you and that we welcome you and that you are maybe brave enough to continue the journey. So that was something that I really would like to say to you specifically.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to sharing this with the rest of the team. Yeah, it's tricky, it's difficult, but as you say, have those difficult conversations, because you have enough homework to do at the moment. Um, so yeah, we're here for you. Yeah, thank you. That's all. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, evening, early morning. I don't know if it's early morning anywhere in the world, but there we are. Ciao, ciao.